All right. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining in. Good evening. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar from Good to Great, expert level CV writing and content tips, hosted by Cisco. We're thrilled to have you join us today. My name is Bumi Oyegoke, and I'll be your moderator for this session. And I have with me on the call Sam, Georgina, and Diane from Cisco. Say hi, guys.
Hey everyone.
Hello.
All right, so before we dive into today's content, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping details to ensure that everyone has a smooth and enjoyable experience. We encourage you to keep your video off to ensure optimal bandwidth for everyone. However, if one of our speakers requests video interaction, please feel free to turn it on. Also, please endeavor to keep your audio muted at all times. We will be using the chat feature for general comments and interactions. If you have any questions for our speakers, you can also use that feature as well. You can find that at the bottom of your screen. All questions will be addressed 10 minutes towards the end of the webinar, right? Recording. Please note that this webinar is being recorded. If you want to keep your cameras on, that is fine. If you're not comfortable with that, please keep them off. Thank you for your attention to these details. We're super excited to have you here today. I'm going to hand over to Sam now. Over to you, Sam.
Thanks, Boomy. Appreciate the introduction there. So hello and evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. As Boomy introduced us, my name is Sam Lavis, and I would just like to start by welcoming you to this interactive session where it's going to be looking at from good to great, and we're going to be looking at expert level CV writing and content tips. In terms of this particular session, this session is brought to you by Cisco and BYP, and we are now celebrating our 4th year of our partnership. And some people do ask us why we partner with BYP, and it's really simple. We're here just to make a difference. And it's not around increasing representation just at Cisco, it's increasing representation across the industry as well. During our exciting partnership, we have held different webinars. We have attended the BYP Careers Fair and also the Leadership Conference as a main sponsor. And we're going to be there next week as well. So we hope to see some of you there. We've also had guest speakers as part of that from Cisco, where we've had joint sessions where they have shared their expertise as well. As the technology industry continues to evolve, we are certain that our partnership with BYP will do the same as well. So, Boomy, could you just go on to the agenda slide, please? Cool. So just going into today's agenda, we're going to have an introduction where I will introduce my colleagues from Cisco, Georgina Finch, and also Diane Cochrane-Hall. We'll then go into a poll where we're going to ask you just to sort of rate your current CV. That's just to give us an understanding of our audience today in terms of where you're at today and hopefully where we can get to by the end of this session. Then we'll go into some slides where we'll just look at some really sort of key basic areas just around sort of CV tips and tricks. And then we'll go into a bit more of that sort of expert advice. And then we want to sort of open that up to an interactive Q&A where I'll be asking Georgina and also Diana just some sort of key questions that, from a recruiter's perspective and from a hiring manager's perspective, they can answer that. And then most importantly, we want to hear from you as well. So if you have any questions whatsoever, then please do just put those in the chat. And, we're really keen to have that time at the end so we can answer any questions that do come through. So if we can just drop the slides, please. Just for a second. So in terms of today's session, this is going to feature sort of industry experts from the recruitment industry who collectively have over 30 years of experience. They will be joined by colleagues and hiring managers, as we've said, from Cisco, where we're going to be looking at high performance, how we interject with from anywhere from what's the best way to put this, from someone starting out their career through to someone who is into sort of their long tenure in terms of their career. Firstly, I'd like to introduce Georgina Finch. She has 20 years of experience within the recruitment industry across various industries. Georgina brings a wealth of experience and she joined Cisco over 7.5 years ago as a recruiter. She now leads our EMEA talent acquisition team for Cisco Meraki, and Georgina is deeply committed to diversity inclusion, striving really to enhance representation within the organization. And outside of work, she actively supports individuals from underrepresented groups by offering CV reviews and interview preparation. Next, I'd like to introduce our colleague, Diane Cochran-Hall. So Diana has over 30 years of experience. She excels in, forming sort of, and leading global cross-functioning teams. Currently, Diana is a sort of leader within our project and program management team and is passionate about increasing opportunities for those who lack that access. Diana is also our EMEA co-lead for our Cisco ERG, which is our Connected Black Professionals. Lastly, I will be part of the discussion as we progress through the session. I bring over 10 years of experience within the recruitment industry, spanning many different industries, including finance, cybersecurity, and sales. Since joining Cisco, my role has evolved from, sort of leading talent acquisition in the UK and Northern Europe sales theatres to now leading our D&I efforts across the EMEA and as part of our global hiring strategy team. One of my main reasons for joining Cisco was really to support change and empower an inclusive community for all. So let's jump into sort of why we're here today. Our goal is to provide you with that practical and useful advice to boost your confidence when making your next career move. We recognize that sort of all may have varying levels of knowledge and expertise in CV writing and content. We aim to offer a comprehensive session starting from the basics. In a moment, I'll share a couple of slides, which will serve as the foundations for our session today. We will then move into a Q&A, and then we'll lastly, as I say, finish up with the Q&A from the audience as well. So Bhumi, if we could jump back into the deck, please. Perfect. Now, just before we go into this, we're just going to run a very short poll, for you to, as an audience, rate your CV currently for where you're at today, just to give us some insight in terms of just an understanding of our audience today. So if we can just run that poll, Bhumi, that would be good.
We are live. We are live and we are getting answers. All right.
I see them coming through. Perfect. So they're coming through now. So yeah, please just continue to do that as we just start by working just into the basics in terms of, sort of creating that standout CV. So this is where I'm going to enlist the aid of my colleagues here, just to sort of, talk through some of this as well, just to see if they've got any points they just want to raise here. But this is really the sort of the basic foundations that, us as recruiters, that we would expect to see, when we are doing reviews. So looking at sort of, I guess, the first section there, it's very much around your own personal information. So making sure, full name, email address, contact number, city, postal code, country, and LinkedIn profile. A LinkedIn profile. I think that's still something which, when I'm reviewing CVs, I still don't see often. I think they are becoming more prevalent. But I think as social media grows, and LinkedIn, just in my opinion, is just that platform that naturally people will go to when they are job hunting. To see a person's profile as well, from a recruiter's point of view, I think it's something which is incredibly beneficial. In terms of any sort of skills there, you want to be looking at your sort of hard skills, soft skills, transferable skills, sort of technical skills, and any sort of languages as well. And then looking at the experience, we really want that to be updated. So full work history, ensuring any gaps in employment have been accounted for. Also any internships and any volunteering that you've done as well. And then finally, your education and your achievements. So your qualifications, your relevant certification, your recognized awards, and your professional memberships as well. Is there anything just on that slide, Georgina or Diana, that you would like to just raise there in terms of the sort of the basics?
Yeah, thanks, Sam. I would say I would actually like to stress the importance of including your LinkedIn profile on your CV. If you think about a recruiter, they're also going to want to understand more about you. So see your LinkedIn profile as a way of your brand, your personal brand. So I would for sure add that to your CV. But if you're going to add it, then please make sure that your profile is also up to date and ready to be viewed by recruiters and potential hiring managers for the job that you are applying for. So that's the only thing that I'll add in there.
Perfect. Thank you. Next slide, please, Boomy.
And just if I can add one thing, a couple of chats have come up saying folks can't see the slides in some places, so you might need to just take that into account.
Working to fix that right now.
Thank you. Sam is covering off each of the points that are on the slides. So if you can't see, it is purely for visuals. And I believe that these slides will be shared after the webinar as well. Is that correct, Boomy?
No, the slides will not be shared, but the recording will be live.
The recording will be shared. Okay, great. Yeah. Thanks.
Perfect. Are we happy to continue? Happy to continue on? Perfect, good. So now we want to go into a bit more sort of expert advice. So some expert tips and some resources that can just take it up another level in terms of really sort of creating that standout CV. So I know this is where I'm going to enlist Georgina and Diana just to sort of, come in with some sort of key talking points here. So I think probably just looking at the expert tips, if we just look at that section to begin with. So one thing that I guess a lot of people, when we are talking around sort of CVs and what we do try to do, and sometimes people will find it difficult, it's very much taking your CV and sort of narrowing that down to around sort of 2 pages. And in terms of that, for me, when I'm giving that advice to someone, I try to sort of put it in the way of talking as if I was the hiring manager as well. If you think yourself as the recruiter, as the sort of the hiring manager, you have to look at that, we're reviewing X amount of applicants. And even in a more competitive market, you're going to want to be sort of, having a CV that is going to be, reviewed by a recruiter, where a recruiter takes on average, we're talking sort of, 5-6 seconds here per CV, to review. And you want that to be short, sharp, and have the content right. Georgina, is there anything you want to add there to that?
I think, there's probably some people that are thinking 6 seconds. But what I will say is, we as recruiters, we have a lot of roles that we are hiring for, and there are a lot of applicants. So just again stressing the importance of having a concise CV, which is no more than 2 pages. It makes it a lot easier for a recruiter to review very quickly. So yeah, it's definitely going to benefit you to do that.
Perfect. And Diana, anything else that you would like to add into that part?
I think as a hiring manager, I rely on the recruiters. And so if you can make it easier for them to spot the best talent, the best candidates for the job, it makes my life easier as well. Because if you can't get past them, you're not going to get to me.
Perfect. The gatekeepers. So this sort of next point we've got here and around sort of our expert tip sort of leads on to what we're talking about, and really around narrowing that CV, and that's having that sort of opening summary paragraph, which is relevant to the job that you're applying for. So what I'll do before I sort of go into anything myself, I'm going to pass this over to Diana just to see if she's got any comments here just around that sort of when she sees a CV and she sees that opening summary, what needs to stand out for her in terms of that.
I've got to say, I mean, one of the things that I look for is a personality in a CV. So don't forget who you are. I mean, make that shine through with your own story, keeping it brief, of course, and keeping it very linked to the role that you're going after. I've had experiences where CVs have got a gem of a person behind them, but they just don't know how to put that across. And that does you a disservice at the end of the day. You've got to find a way of standing out and doing that very quickly. So the best CVs that I have seen have been ones that are relevant to the role, where the linkage between the person's experience, even if it isn't direct on the job experience relating to the role that is now being applied for, shows how that other experience can translate into the role. So think more broadly. It doesn't have to be a like for like fit, but definitely put that at the top of your CV and make sure that your CV is laid out in a very clear fashion.
Nice, thank you. Thank you for that. And Georgina, anything you'd like to add there as well?
I think Diana completely nailed it there. Thinking again about what we said, making it easier for the recruiter to access that key information. When you have that lovely opening paragraph right at the top of your CV, where you can actually ensure that you have, a summary of your skills and the intent for why you wanted to apply for the role that you are applying for, it just answers so many questions. So yeah, that's the only thing that
Perfect, brilliant. And yeah, for myself, I think just a really opening, powerful sort of statement or summary just in that paragraph, I think is key. It's the first thing that we're drawn to as recruiters. We go right to the top, you see the contact information, and then you see that you want to see that summary straight away. And it's one of the things that every time I speak to anyone, I will always say, just have a really powerful opening summary and relate that, take your experience and relate that to the job that you're applying for. I think that's key. And then the third point down there is very much looking at listing achievements and accomplishments here in each role, and ideally linking them to the requirements of the role that you're applying for as well. So this is sometimes where it gets a little bit misguided when people are sort of writing out a CV, and this is where it becomes quite long and they want to sort of get everything down onto the page. And I think for me, when I'm speaking to someone, I definitely try to ask them to sort of tailor, more of what they've done, which is related to that role that they're applying for. And for me, it's looking more at those achievements and accomplishments that maybe have happened more recently in someone's career as the industry has evolved. But that's not saying that things in someone's prior history is not important. I'm just saying when we look at sort of, how that sort of industry has changed, and if we take the technology industry as an example, obviously, there is waves coming through in terms of, sort of from a sales point of view, where we've got sort of different sort of portfolios, and it's great to see that within someone's profile that they've listed those accomplishments where it could be within a particular technology which is evolving in the industry. And as we evolve as a company in terms of Cisco, that's great to see that someone has that experience. Georgina, anything you'd like to add there?
Yeah, I think what's key for me is linking your accomplishments to the role. It just makes things a lot simpler for us to be able to extract the information that we need, and also it shows that you put the care and attention to CV, and it also, it shows how driven and passionate you are to actually, go for the position in the first place. So it speaks volumes, guys. So I really can't stress that enough.
Nice, thank you. And Diana, anything else you'd like to add on that point?
Yeah, I think sometimes we're limiting ourselves with our achievements and accomplishments. It's not just what you've achieved and accomplished in your professional world, but it may be things that you've done outside of that. So maybe volunteering opportunities that you've had, or mentoring that you've done, or associations that you've joined where you're playing a role. And those roles are giving you skills that you can apply to this particular opportunity that you're applying for. So just try and think creatively about your CV. It doesn't have to be a perfect fit, but take those skills that you've got and see how you apply them. So if you've gained leadership experience outside of doing a formal role in something that you're passionate about, don't be afraid of bringing that leadership experience into applying for a professional role. It doesn't matter. You're gaining those skills. And one of the things that gets looked over, or overlooked rather, is bringing your soft skills, your transferable skills, assuming that the folks on the call understand what those terms mean. But you've got the hard skills where you've got your certifications for a particular technology, but then you've got your soft skills where you've got communication skills, let's say, or organization skills. And then you've got other transferable skills. So think broadly about how you apply yourself to a role.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that. And then this point is one that we see often, is one that we do see often. And it's very much looking at when you have a person who does take that insight and does, takes on sort of, tailoring their CV to a particular role or job. Just looking at the responsibilities in that role, what I sometimes see is actually, someone just sort of copying the job descriptions, and that's not what we're looking for here. So instead of answering this myself to begin with, I'm going to pass it over to Georgina and just get her thoughts on this.
Yeah. So there's two things here. People, when they are listing the main responsibilities of each of the roles that they have worked within, tend to list their job description within those spaces, which doesn't help if you're trying to keep your CV down to 2 pages. So, which is why we truly recommend that you put no more than 4 or 5 points, which summarizes your roles and responsibilities in each role. And that will help you keep your CV as short as possible. But going on to what Sam was just saying in terms of, it's great that people link their experience to the job description for the role. But what we want to see is how you feel that your skills will be beneficial in the role that you want to apply to. Okay? We don't want you to say, yes, I have everything that is listed in the job that I am applying to, and these are the things that I have, which is basically a copy and paste of the skills and the main responsibilities of the roles that you are applying to. So please take the extra time and attention into basically making sure that your CV is tailored, because this is, very important if you are going to stand out in such a competitive market, which we find ourselves in right now.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Georgina. And Diana, anything you would like to add there as well?
No, I think that was a really good response from Georgina, so I'm good.
Brilliant. Nice. Thank you. And then I think just to wrap up, I guess, on this expert tip side, something which I think we've covered throughout these sort of pointers is that, just making it visually appealing, just very clear, very concise, and snappy. So I think, that sort of, really just caps off, I guess, all those points that we've just enlisted there. Moving now just over probably to something which, there's going to be points here which are going to be incredibly important, and one that probably a lot of you can see there, and probably maybe some of the questions that I've seen coming through is the use of AI as well. So this part is now going to start looking at sort of expert tools and resources, really just to help you sort of build out that CV. And this can be anyone that, you know, someone that doesn't have a CV, someone that has a current CV. You know, there are things here that that can help you in terms of that. But I think, you know, we have a level of responsibility here on this call today, just to say that you know, there needs to be a level of self-awareness when you are using these tools as well. You know, you can't fully rely on them. They are very good aids in terms of helping someone to get their CV to that particular level. But please, you know, just in terms of obviously using these tools, you know, don't make them your sort of your you know, your sole usage in terms of, you know, getting to that particular level. You still need to have that human touch there. So just as we go through these, you can see there just at that sort of first point, you know, that there's a couple of great options that we've given there just in terms of template ideas. And, you know, in terms of sort of templates, you know, I think they're great in terms of sort of giving someone the foundations in terms of, you know, what potentially a great CV can look like. You know, if they're starting with a blank page and they're really struggling to see what that looks like. But these templates, you know, are great for, you know, I would say anyone, you know, that is looking to do a refresh of their CV. If it's, you know, someone that, as I say, doesn't have one, or someone, you know, who has a CV which they just want to do a refresh on, I think, you know, they're beneficial to all. And, you know, I think, you know, in terms of Diana, if there's anything else you want to, you know, sort of put to this point, or Georgina, that would be great.
I've taken a look at the first couple, and yes, I like them because they walk you through the process. So it's a guided CV building tool. It may not give you the most dynamic CV, but it does create a solid foundation for the users to build on.
Yeah, and there are plenty of templates out there. You know, find one that you know best fits your personality and appeals to you the most. Is what I'd say there as well. And all of these tools, just touching on what Sam was saying about AI, you know, AI is there to help, you know, and guide, but it can never replace the human element. So going back to Diana's point earlier on about, you know, bringing your personality into your CV, you're still going to need to inject that. So, you know, strongly recommend, don't just take the suggestion that's been given to you by any AI to always go in and, you know, make it your own.
Nice, perfect.
And do read what comes out of an AI tool. I mean, I think, come on, guys, you know, Georgina, Sam, if we throw an AI generated CV at you, I am pretty sure you're going to spot it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So the advice is, you know, bring AI to the table, but also don't forget to bring the human to the table. Do not put all your faith in an AI tool. It's got to reflect who you are. So make sure that you read it through super carefully, make sure that the content is correct and does represent what you have achieved and who you are, because AI is still formative and it can hallucinate. And you've got to make sure that you work on those prompts, because if you don't have the right tone of voice in there, or you feed it misinformation, you're going to get back what you put in.
Yeah, both great call outs, fantastic call outs. And, you know, myself, you know, we're regularly using AI tools, you know, we're regularly, you know, using AI tools and working with AI tools, you know, just to see sort of, you know, the responses that we do get, you know, in terms of the work that we're doing currently. And to, you know, Diana's point, you can't solely rely on these tools yet. They're not at a stage where they are fully developed. And you can tell, you can see when a CV does come through, when, you know, someone has used a tool, you know, and it does stand out in terms of the language which is used. You know, a lot of these tools use US English language. They don't use, you know, English language. So that's one that does stand out. And yeah, I think, you know, tools definitely, you know, in terms of using them, but, you know, just make sure you're doing your due diligence when you are using them. you know, and put that personal touch on there. Put that personal touch on there, because that will come.
Yeah.
Perfect. And then if we could move on to, yeah, we're going to move on to questions now, because just mindful of time, that, you know, obviously we want to move into sort of the more interactive parts. So these are going to be questions for Georgina and Diana. So Boomi, if we could just drop down the deck for a second, that would be good. Perfect. Thank you. So I am coming to you, Georgina, first, so I'm not going to put you on the spot. You know, this is for both of you to answer these questions and get involved, but we've got different, you know, we've got different perspective and views here. So we're going to try and obviously have a bit of a subsection, but we want to get involvement from both of you here. So just in terms of that first question, what role does storytelling play in crafting and engaging a resume? And do you have any tips on how to effectively weave your personal experience into the professional narrative?
Yeah, thanks, Sam. So remember, we were talking about the power of the opening statement at the beginning of your CV. You know, this is your short story, and every good CV has one. Okay. So as we said before, make sure that it highlights what you've done to date, and also make sure that it gives a very brief breakdown of why you're wanting to apply for the role. It shouldn't be a lot of people ask me how big does this paragraph need to be? And what I would say is, dependent upon your experience, anywhere between 100 to 200 words is completely sufficient. And I'm talking about personal experiences. Please don't be afraid to include personal experiences, particularly where you've got gaps in your professional career, because it tells your story. It's really important not to have any gaps in your CV. So, for example, we talk about this time off to raise children. You might have had a career break to go traveling, or you might have cared for a loved one. So all of this information adds to your story, and feel free to include that.
Nice, thanks a lot, Georgina. And anything, Diana, that you want to just add to that as well?
No, I think she covered it brilliantly. Nice job, Georgina.
Nice. And just looking at more at sort of resumes and just talking around maybe common mistakes. So, you know, can you share some sort of common mistakes that people sort of make on their resumes, and how our attendees today can avoid those, George?
Yeah, sure. So, you know, I'm just going to give you some basic examples. It happens. We see lots of grammatical mistakes, spelling mistakes. So on one of the slides that Sam shared, it gave you know, some advice on how to make sure, you know, basic spell checks using, I think, tools like Grammarly really go a long way. So those are the basics. The other thing that I will say to have in your mind is always tailor your CV, as we've discussed before, because that is a huge theme for me. Tailoring your CV and trimming it down. So if you can remember two things from this webinar, tailor your CV and trim it down, is going to stand you in good stead. But these, you know, despite the advice that's out there, despite us giving the advice that we give, you know, we still see a lot of these things happen, where really long CVs and CVs that are not relevant to the role people are applying to. So these are common mistakes.
Right. Yeah, no, I think we can all agree, all of us, that we've seen some absolute doozies when it comes to the mistakes that we've made. So yeah, I think to Georgina's point there, I think, you know, definitely just, you know, just double check, trim, make it specific to the role, and just really just take your time with it, you know, take your time with it as well. And this is probably quite, you know, leading just a little bit away from the CV actually, and this is probably for both of you as well, because I think we do get asked this question quite a lot. In terms of the cover letter, you know, what role does that really sort of play now in sort of complementing the CV, just as we've seen this evolution of how someone can apply for a role. So, you know, before people would have a covering letter, they'd have a CV, it would all be specific to that role, like the covering letter.
Yeah.
Now it's very much in a time where, you know, we're talking around AI, but even between those two, we're talking even like, you know, we've mentioned around sort of platforms like LinkedIn as an example, where people go for their job search, and you've got easy apply buttons now.
Yeah.
You know, it's becoming a lot easier to apply for roles. So it would just be interesting to hear actually from both of you, you know, just in terms of how the covering letter, if it still holds the substance that it used to, and how does it complement that CV then moving forward?
Yeah. So let me answer this from a recruiter's perspective. I think the key word that you said is evolution, and now we have evolved to see that, you know, it's not common practice, particularly for larger organisations. However, what I will say, it is very much dependent upon the organisation, and more importantly, whether they have specifically requested it. So the advice here is, if they have requested it, definitely provide it, because you're following the application process. If they haven't requested it, there's no need for you to do that. So your application in itself, your CV, are perfectly fine. And again, what I would see is the importance of your LinkedIn profile. See that as something that complements, in this day and age, your application, which is why it's very important to have one and make sure it's updated. So I don't see the worth of a cover letter right now. But Diana, you might disagree. Do you?
Well, I've been in the industry for a very long time. I'm nearly 40 years into
Wow.
the IT industry. So when I first started, yes, they expected a cover letter.
Yeah.
Now, I think I'd probably fall off my chair if I saw a cover letter. And to the point made earlier, 6 seconds, folks. Just hold that thought.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you know, I will say, however, smaller organizations and even some areas of the public sector may still see this as standard practice. So as I said before, very much dependent on the organization. And if they've requested it, provide it. Yeah.
That 6-second comment sounds brutal, by the way. Like, that's terrible. But I can assure you, we do our due diligence. We do a proper role. Maybe moving slightly away from actually maybe just talking around sort of we've talked around the CV, we've talked around the covering letter. Now sort of maybe going into, again, to the CV, but actually looking at this in a different point of view. Just looking at, if someone is changing their career, what advice can we give them to make their CV more relevant to that new industry?
Yeah. Get this question a lot. And I'm going to go back to talking about the power of your opening statement. Okay. So what a recruiter will want to see is how you demonstrate your passion for wanting to move to a different role or industry. And the next thing is focus on the transferable skills that you've gathered from your current role that will be beneficial for the role that you are applying to. So it's obviously going to be even better, linking back to what we said earlier, if you could link those transferable skills to what's listed in the job description that you are applying to. So let me give you an example. I might be recruiting for a marketing role, and you currently work in finance. But then the job description lists, you know, lots of different skills, like having good analytical skills, good presentation skills. And if you can actually say that you've gathered a number of transferable skills to that effect, then that is going to make me as a recruiter shortlist you for this role, despite you not actually coming from a marketing background. So this is why it's really important for you to actually add that additional context within that opening statement. And I just want to add to this, you know, it's a highly competitive market. So if you make the decision to explore an industry and a role which is different to what you're currently doing, you have to remember that you're going to be up against people that may have had a number of years experience in your new chosen career path. So you are going to have to try even harder to stand out. So this is why having that, spending that extra time on your CV, trust me, is always going to go a long way. I don't want that to stand negative, because I don't want that to deter you to apply for the role that you ultimately want to apply for. But it is going to take that extra bit.
I think it also means that you've got to invest in yourself.
Yeah.
So show that it's a conscious decision. Do your due diligence and research the industry that you're going into. And that has to come across in the way in which you lay out your CV and you map your previous experience to what you're applying to now, as well as any training that you may have done, more formal training. So if you wanted to go into program management or project management, for example, go and do PMP as a basic training. Join PMI, so the Project Management Institute. Just join it. It costs about 15 quid, but show that you are committed to going into that area as a career. I did see a CV recently. I might be getting slightly ahead of myself, but I saw a CV recently, and I was hiring for a role, and the role isn't particularly exciting. I'll tell you, it's a role that's basically helping our customers manage their IT infrastructure, manage their computing equipment and the services that they have that help them maintain it. I'll leave it at that. But it does mean having customer interaction. It does mean having interaction with the sales team within Cisco. It means you need to understand commercial contracts to an extent. You need to be personable. You're going to get slapped upside the head occasionally because customers aren't interested in the service, so they want to pay for it, but you've got to convince them to do that. You're going to get slapped upside the head by the sellers because they've got more important things to do right now, like getting new business rather than worrying about a service contract on something they sold years ago. So you've got to be really flexible and resilient and getting in the mix. I had a candidate apply for this, and this gentleman had been working in pharmaceuticals. And I thought, why are you applying to Cisco? But he made it really clear that in pharmaceuticals, it is a dog-eat-dog industry and that he'd been managing contracts there. And he was used to being slapped upside the head by the sellers and dealing with difficult customers and looking at contracts to supply pharmaceutical products. So it wasn't that massive a leap for him to take those skills and transfer them to Cisco. The thing that he did was to demonstrate that in his CV, but not just that, he'd done his research on Cisco. When I actually met him and I had a conversation with him and I was about to present to him what Cisco's about, I was just floored by how much he already knew. He demonstrated, he didn't get it all right, but I was still floored because he demonstrated just how much he wanted to come and work for Cisco. And, it didn't matter. It was pharmaceuticals at that point. He'd made the linkage already in the CV. He'd gotten past those, gatekeepers called recruiters. And he got to me. And by the time he got to me, I just thought, this is amazing. He was also ridiculously overqualified, I have to say, for what he was applying for. And to me, that even said more loudly, I want to come and work for Cisco. So I hired him and as a contractor, and within a year, he's joined us as a full-time employee. So this thing can pay dividends if you're willing to put in the effort.
That's amazing insight from a hiring manager as well.
Thank you so much, Anna, for giving context as well, to Cisco, to what we do here, and internally, as a company, we our statement is one company, many careers. So you never know where that particular person might end up. I'm not trying to shoo them out of your your theatre, but who knows? It sounds like this person could have an incredible future, maybe somewhere else. We'll try and poach into sales.
I'm not going to tell you who it is now then, Sam.
So I'm just mindful of time here, and we definitely want to have Q&A from the audience as well. So I'm just going to ask a couple more questions, and I think one is prevalent just in regards to talking around AI. So I'm going to aim this to both of you. So George, just really talking around sort of AI and how that really affects my application in terms of how it's being reviewed by an organization. So I think that's an important point just to raise here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am going to keep this short and sweet because I know that there's really good questions from a hiring manager perspective that we want to give to Diana. I'm keeping this short and sweet. Many organizations, including Cisco, are exploring AI tools at the moment to help with lots of things, mainly saving time on shortlisting applications. And how they do this is by skills matching. So do you have the skills that this job is looking for? Okay, so going back to the original point, it's even more of a necessity, I don't want to sound like a broken record, to tailor your CV to the role that you're applying for in this new age of AI in particular, okay? But then also, just to reiterate, your CV, even though it has been shortlisted by an AI tool, will always be validated by a human in myself, a recruiter, or a hiring manager. So please take away, that as a bit of comfort as well.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate that, George. Thank you. And we are going to transition and pivot slightly. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions. So Diana, I'm coming to you now first. I'm putting you in the spotlight. So I think we have addressed a couple of the questions that we did already have just in regards to the layout, the visuals of a CV, and tailoring it specifically to a job. So I'm just going to look at maybe just if you can provide us an example of where you've had a standout CV and explain what really made that exceptional as well.
I think, yeah, the example that I just shared was a case in point. Although this person was from a different industry, they managed to look at that skill set that Georgina was referring to and apply where they've used those skills in their existing industry, how they could actually lift and shift those skills in relation to the role. Because we're asking for the same skill, it's just that you're applying it in different industries. So if you're used to dealing with contracts, if you're used to dealing with sales teams, if you're used to dealing with customers on the phone, if you have been part of a call center, doesn't matter whether it was a call center in pharmaceuticals or in IT, depending on the level of technical expertise that is required, of course. But some skills you can literally lift and shift into other roles. So I think this person did an exceptional job of demonstrating that and also demonstrating their intent to join Cisco. He didn't mind coming into a role that was actually below where he should probably be, were he joining Cisco under ideal circumstances. He was willing to take the hit to get into the door and then see that world of opportunity where he could start really pursuing a serious career. So he thought it through.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you for that. Thank you. And just sort of, I guess, something that we have touched on then. So just in talk, and this is for both of you here, just looking at that visual layout and design of a CV, how does that sort of aid in your decision-making process then? So if you...
in respect to myself, make my life easier. Yeah, I'm busy. The reason why I'm hiring for someone to come and work with me or on my team is because there's too much work going on for the people that we've got at the moment. So if you can make it easier for me to see you as a viable candidate, you're making my life easier and you're giving yourself a much better chance of securing the position.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that goes back to what we originally started with in terms of tailoring that CV and really getting that down to that 2-pager if you can do, making it easy for the hiring manager to do that review. And George, anything there that you want to add as well?
No, I think, yeah, Diane's nailed it. And I think we've talked about about this quite a bit. So yeah, happy to move on to the next one.
So I think we'll just finish off with this question. So this is a good one because I think sometimes, we see it, sometimes we don't, and there's no right or wrong here. But do you prefer a candidate to reach out to you, directly in terms of supporting their application?
Ooh, that's a tricky one. Like I said, I'm busy. However, amongst this community specifically, yeah, I am all about helping our community. So I am open to people reaching out to me on a reasonable basis. Okay. Not just blanket, spraying requests everywhere, but on a specific basis. And I'm not even going to speak for myself personally. I'll even speak on behalf of my son, who is 23 and has just finished his master's at Cambridge in economics, and he has started his first job in an economic consultancy. And I have been blown away by him because he accepts people reaching out to him, asking how they can either get into Cambridge or join in a career path that he has taken. How do they get the internship opportunity that he had when he was at Cambridge before he joined the company full time? Now, I thought as a 23-year-old, he's probably not going to want to do that. But he has made me so proud in that he has helped numerous people. I've just said, what are you doing? And he goes, I'm just talking to someone over here on LinkedIn. And I'm just like, yes, my son. He is mentoring, he is paying forward already. And I'm thrilled about that. And so hopefully that's through example. I do like to pay forward, but it has to be very specific because I am busy. I cannot open all doors into Cisco, but if you're willing to take whatever I have to give, then that's fine. It may be advice to go and look elsewhere. It may be some indication of where the IT business is going. It may not be, I can give you a job today. It's very unlikely to be that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. And George, anything just to finish up before we go into Q&A?
Firstly, your son is an absolute inspiration. That's such an amazing thing to share. But firstly, the only thing I will say is actually, in terms of supporting your application, the recruiter should always be your first point of contact. Ask your recruiter, do you think it would be okay for me to reach out to the hiring manager and take on board their advice, because they can also provide you with a lot of internal insights as well. So I would always say the recruiter is your first point of call.
Mm.
Okay. So yeah, I'm conscious of time, Sam, and I saw quite a lot of good questions coming in.
Good questions. So I've just brought them up now here. Actually, I don't think Bhumi's still on the call. So I'm just going to switch over just to the questions.
Yeah.
So we've got one here from Demi. So Demi, so she's put out here to what level of LinkedIn profile is acceptable, preferable to recruiters, i.e. a basic profile with your employment history or one with flashy posts made on a regular basis?
I'm going to answer that as a recruiter. It depends on the industry, being completely honest. For example, I'm going to go back to marketing people. If you are applying for a marketing role, my expectation as a recruiter is that your LinkedIn profile is going to be fantastic, because you are in the industry which requires you to market products, services. So your LinkedIn profile should also market you. So I would have that level of expectation. But if I was to compare that to, for example, an administration role, I would not have a huge expectation for somebody to be posting all the time. That's not to say you shouldn't. It's just to say that I wouldn't have the expectation as a recruiter. But what I would ultimately want to see is the information on regarding your work history. I would want that to marry up with what is on your CV. So the two need to match, and I would want to see a profile on there. So that's hopefully will answer your question there.
Nice. And Diana, anything else you'd like to add to that as well?
Nothing to add. Perfect.
Perfect. So our next question is coming in from Babs as well. So Babs has put here, AI is used by companies to filter CVs. How can you ensure your CV stands out by also that it gets selected by the system? So how can we ensure that, I guess? Yeah, by the
matching skills. Yeah. Again, broken record. Make sure your skills and all of your experience is in line for the role that you are applying for. And if it's not a like-for-like role, think of those transferable skills. So yeah.
Perfect. Good. And I'm just working through here now. How do you sell yourself effectively if you don't have direct experience in a role that you're applying for? So I think we've touched on that slightly in terms of that career transition, but maybe just anything that we can add there.
I think we answered that. Yeah. But please shout out whoever asked that question. If you need any additional context, please either put it into the chat or come off camera and join us in the conversation.
Right.
No.
If you have more than 10 years of experience in the industry, do you still have to keep the CV down to 2 pages? I think we spoke about this the other day, didn't we? So we had the exact same conversation.
Yes, yes, we do. I'm going to quickly give my recruiter insight. So just a little bit of advice. We want the detail that relates to the job that you're applying for. So I work in recruitment. The role that I'm applying for is a recruitment role. I'm going to list all of my recruitment experience. However, I also have a bit of sales experience. So what I will do is detail all of my recruitment experience and then put prior to 2000, I spent 7 years working in sales in a variety of telesales roles within finance. Yeah. So I've detailed my work experience, but I've gone into explicit detail into the experience that relates to the role that I'm applying for. And that's what recruiters, 6 seconds, are going to be looking for. So I would stick to that.
Cool.
Thanks a lot, George. Appreciate that. We do have another one for the recruiters, and this is very much around looking at career graduates. So what is the biggest soft skill you see lacking among young career graduates today?
Sorry, I think it broke up there. Sorry, Sam.
Sorry. So what is the biggest soft skill you see lacking among young career graduates today?
Within CVs?
I think just soft skills, yeah, just possibly in general. Maybe if we get to the interview stage, maybe, yeah, if we're talking CVs, but interviewing as well. I guess we could encompass that as well.
Oh, I've been involved in graduate recruiting for some time. Let me think. I think from what we see, we see a lot of people with personality coming through. I've seen some really strong graduates recently. Diana, have you seen anything you can call out?
I think one of the great things about Cisco is that we try to recruit diverse talent. So you find all kinds of personalities applying to Cisco. But if I think more broadly than that, the one thing that I hear many say is that they don't like speaking on the phone. So but aside from that, no, I think we've had some really strong, dynamic, and far more confident.
Yeah.
Yeah. When at least in a face-to-face scenario,
yeah,
or as we are now on video.
Yeah.
Sometimes not so much on the phone, to be fair, but on video, very, very confident, and they're happy to have a conversation with anyone in the business, whether it's the CEO or me. Doesn't make any difference.
Yeah,
Really
impressive people out there. Yeah. So sorry, we can't actually give you anything that people are lacking. I think what we've done is listed what people have in abundance right now. I've just actually read a comment, Sam, that says my CV is literally 7 pages. However, less words and more images. We don't need to see images on your CV. It would be good to understand what images they are. But we really don't, images are not important.
Nice finish up there. I know we're actually over time. So Bhumi, do we have time for maybe one more question, or Bhumi there?
Okay, yes. I'm sorry, guys. My internet's just throwing me all over the place. Yes, we can just stretch it by 10 more minutes, because again, I do believe this is very pivotal for career seekers. People who are, trying to change careers, trying to get into industry. So yes, please, let's stretch to 7:10, and then we'll just.
I think we only have a couple more, so we'll be good. We'll try as best as possible. So this is an interesting one, which is sort of maybe coming, from Demi again. Do you recommend tech recruitment agencies, assuming you can't tailor your CV, or applying directly?
Okay. The agencies are still going to need a CV. They're still going to want to see a CV. So, that's one thing I will say. Another thing is, with it being such a competitive market at the minute, and not being as many roles out there as talented people, companies don't tend to use recruitment agencies as much as they used to. I'm giving you this insight. So I would strongly recommend applying directly to the organization is my advice to you. But given how competitive the market is, feel free to also apply to and build relationships with external recruitment agencies, because you want to enhance your chances, right? Increase your chances to actually get the ideal role. So apply directly and work with agencies, but you are still going to need to present the CV to them as well.
Yeah. I think I'm definitely a little bit biased to this, because obviously I came over to Cisco just under 3 years ago. So my agency hat tells me that if you're gonna work with the recruitment agencies, I think to George's point, just make sure you've got really good relationships with. I always used to say, make sure you've got relationships with no more than sort of 3 or 4 recruitment agencies, and directly with those agents as well. I think if you've got really good relationships, they'll understand what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And they'll be doing that tailoring for you, or they'll be asking for you to do that tailoring, because it's only in their best interest. Let's be honest, it is in their best interest to get you the right role, and to help you to do that as well.
I've got a question for you, Sam.
Oh no! Don't put me on the spot. Don't put me on the spot. This is far away.
But on that point, I mean, can you have too many agencies working for you, too many recruiters working for you out there? Because I'm assuming that you've got relationships with each other, or you're going after the same positions. So can you over-egg the pudding sometimes?
Yeah, of course you can. Yeah, of course you can. I think that goes back to the point where I just said, make those relationships, have sort of 3 or 4 recruitment agencies that you're working with, because it is an incredibly competitive market. I met with my old director a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying the same thing. His need in the cyber security industry has gone down massively since COVID. Hiring agencies, do have a place and will always have a position. But it's a competitive market, and sometimes you will see duplication, and that sometimes can be detrimental to a person's application when they're receiving a CV from one agency to another. So I think in terms of that, I think just build those close relationships with about 3 or 4 agencies, that they really get to know you, and make sure they're not sending your CV anywhere without you knowing it as well. I think that's a key thing. There's a lot of that. Just looking at time, we've got 5 minutes left. So any CV tips for young professionals with less than 3 years experience, specifically 2 experience to apply for grad roles, but don't have the required 5 to 10 years experience asked for a similar role in tech?
Yeah. So with you lovely people with less than 3 years experience, you should be able to get your CV on 1 page, let alone 2. So that's what I will say is you've got that in your corner for sure. Look, what I would say is this, going back to your opening statement and demonstrating the passion as to why you want to apply for the roles that you are going for. We need to see more of that. We want to see that personality even more so in someone that hasn't got as much experience. I wouldn't say the experience, but as many years experience. You know, I've met absolutely phenomenal candidates that have had 5 years experience and then not been blown away by somebody that's got 10 years experience. So, you know, just because you have 20 years experience, it doesn't mean anything. How can you apply that experience? What did you learn in that experience that makes you ideal for the role that you wish to apply for? These things are really, really important. So don't put yourself down. You've got 3 years experience, fantastic 3 years experience. What are you going to do with proving to people the experience that you have is valuable and will add value to the role that you are looking to apply to? That's what you need to focus on.
Nice. Diana, anything you want to add there?
No, I'd just like to get on to the next question because I saw a really good one come through.
What have we got here? Yes, we have. I'm applying, well, we've got a couple here. I'm applying for roles that span data analyst, scientist, and product manager. Do I need to create a specific CV for each role instead of a specific CV for each role I apply to? Is that the question you saw come through?
Yeah.
Or is it the next one?
Well, it was a follow on the next one, so I thought we'd start with the first one.
Nice. Who wants to take this question? George, shall I pass over to
Well,
you?
yeah, I say I'll do the first part. Diana, you take the second one. The first part I'll say is yes, you do. You absolutely do. Because data analyst and science product manager, they're all different roles. They will have different skills and role requirements. So yes, you do. Short and sweet answer.
Nice. And Ethan, yeah, coming in with this question, which, I think we've had often, but I think both recruiter and hiring manager can answer this one. So Diana, I'm coming to you.
No, man.
Do you have any examples of catching an applicant in a lie in their CV? And what's your opinion on lying and embellishing on your CV?
All right. I will say that I can't say that I've caught an applicant in a lie on their CV, but I have had applicants not be able to add the meat on the bone of the skill or the achievement that they've put on their CV. I'm not doing interviews to humiliate people. I would just say, you know, because we want to end that interview on good terms. Yeah. It's an exchange. It's a value exchange in an interview. So, you know, if there's not enough depth to something, then that sets off a red flag.
Yeah.
So, and I'll just shorten that interview. Let's not waste each other's time. Yeah. So if I stick with you, it's because I'm interested and I want to keep knowing more. If it's really short, then I made my mind up already. And what's my opinion? I mean, come on, really? Do I have to give an opinion? It doesn't work for me. Really does not work for me. And I'll, some folks are more comfortable doing that than others. The sort of ladies in the house tend to be less, flamboyant in our claims of achievement and having led the entire team to glory. Yeah, we must. Well, it was a team effort, or I only did this, or I only did that. It's like no. Big yourself up. Give yourself some credit. So there's that balance. Yeah, just stick with the truth, guys, and we're golden.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a really good place to finish up today. I think that's a really good place to finish up. So yeah, thank you, Diana and Georgina, for that. Both really insightful views. And now I'm going to pass back over to Bhumi, maybe just to close.
Is Bhumi having technical issues?
I think Bhumi might be having technical issues.
Okay.
So I think, yeah, we have gone over time today, so we are at 10 past. I think if anyone has any questions or any follow-ups, then yeah, you have our details there, or speak to sort of Bhumi at BYP, who can connect you with us individually. I just want to thank you all for joining. Thank you so much. It's been, yeah, great to have this session with you. And I'll pass over to my colleagues to close off as well.
Thanks, Sam. It's been an absolute pleasure being here today, and I'm looking through the questions and I still see some that we haven't answered. So we're going to try our best to compose some answers, send them through to BYP so they can add that as any additional supporting documentation. And what I will say is, hopefully you found this useful. It's a competitive market out there, and what we've tried to do today is really help you stand out. So hopefully you've all got something that you can take away, and good luck. And please connect with us on LinkedIn. We're here to help.
Yeah, nice.
All right. Best of luck, everybody.
Oh, thank you both. Appreciate that.
All right. Yes, I'm really sorry. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sam, Diana, Georgina. This has been amazing. And I know that people have taken a lot from this. And I definitely look forward to people landing jobs and saying, oh, it was, that one Cisco webinar that I attended. Oh, it was that one Cisco webinar that I attended. I definitely look forward to that. So thank you. I believe someone is asking, if we could share the handles. So please, what are the handles you want us to follow for Cisco? What handles? For BYP, it's obviously BYP Network. So what are the handles, please, Sam?
I think they were on, potentially we might have had them on the last slide. They might have been, yeah, there was a QR code.
Okay, so I'll just project that. I'll just project the slide. Give me a minute to do that.
But also, please do connect with us on LinkedIn. We'd love to connect with you all and keep you posted with everything that's happening. And you can also see all of the additional handles. We have plenty, and we would like you to follow all of them. So it would be impossible to list them. So please look at our profiles and follow us, and we can do the same as well.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, happy to do so.
Just gonna share really quickly. Here you go. So here is the QR code. Can everyone see the screen fine? So please, you can just scan that. Can you see the screen, please?
Yeah.
It's coming.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. So please, you can scan that. I'll leave it up. I'll just leave it up. I'll be here maybe till 7:20. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Thank you so much again, Sam, Georgina, Diana. Thank you so much. Do have a lovely evening.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.